I spent about $150 on a thermal camera to test a $1 emergency blanket trick. That sounds like responsible financial planning, doesn't it? The blanket came from my car, took only a few minutes to install, and one part of the result initially made me wonder why I'd bought the camera at all. The other part made the whole experiment worth it. And because no one buys a thermal camera merely to film 2 windows, I also pointed it at a few of my beloved animals. We'll come back to them later, so pay attention. If you don't have air conditioning or don't want to run it all day because of the electricity bill, the cheapest way to keep your home cooler isn't always to create more cold air. Sometimes it's about stopping the heat before it gets inside. You wake up to a reasonably cool house, if you wake up early enough. You open the windows at 8 in the morning, enjoy a few hours of fresh air, and by lunchtime, the room has become an oven, even though it felt perfectly fresh only a few hours earlier. I know that feeling. Once the floor, furniture, and walls are warm, opening a window doesn't magically reset the building. Everything inside has absorbed heat, and it'll keep releasing that heat back at you, even when the cooler evening air finally arrives. So instead of waiting for the room to overheat and then fighting it, let's stop some of that heat before it crosses the window. This emergency blanket is the main trick. For the test, I used 2 adjacent windows at the same time. I left one uncovered and placed the emergency blanket over the outside of the other. First, let's look at the blanket itself. It comes packed like this, and you can find one in almost any general store for less than $1. Once opened, you can clearly see the 2 metallic sides. When you want protection from strong sunlight, the silver side faces the sun and the gold side faces inside the house. The other way around when you want to keep the heat trapped in winter or cold season. For this test, the silver side faced outside. I sprayed water over the exterior surface of the glass and pressed the thin sheet against it. The water creates enough surface tension to help the sheet cling flat against the window. It isn't glue, and nothing is permanently attached, but it stayed in place remarkably well. I still trapped the edges inside the closed window, just in case. For windows this size, one blanket can cover 2 windows if you measure and cut it properly. It's simple, cheap, and removable. On my windows, it came away cleanly without leaving stains or any damage. But it isn't windproof. That's why I closed the window over the edges rather than trusting the water alone. And yes, this is an algorithm confession. The YouTube algorithm is brutal, so I'm using my beautiful dog to stop you from clicking away while this $150 camera earns its keep. This isn't an advertisement. I'd simply never seen a dog through a thermal camera before, and I found it fascinating. So why not share it? The surface of his fur appeared relatively cool, but when I separated the fur slightly, the warmer skin underneath became visible. I believe the official scientific term is worth the $150. Anyway, back to the windows. When I compared the 2 panes, the covered window showed a difference of only about 2 degrees Celsius. You can see it here. Not nothing, but hardly the result that justifies the investment. I was expecting something more dramatic. 2 degrees? That was underwhelming. But glass is an awkward surface for a thermal camera. It can reflect infrared energy from the surroundings, which makes a direct reading from the pane less reliable. That's why I experimented with white tape, trying to give the camera a more consistent surface to read. Perhaps black tape would have behaved differently, but black also absorbs more heat, so that would have created another problem. I tried a few things, but the tape wasn't where I made the real discovery. The real discovery was the floor. Both floor patches were lit at the same time. One received direct sunlight through the uncovered window. The other still received visible light, but through the emergency blanket. And there, the camera showed a difference of roughly 10 degrees Celsius between the 2 floor surface readings. 10 degrees. Can you imagine? The sunlight passing through the uncovered window was heating the floor, the furniture, and every other surface it reached. Those surfaces then held onto that heat and released it back into the room during the day and even later in the evening. And curtains won't stop that in the same way, because by the time the sunlight reaches them, it has already passed through the glass and entered your home. The emergency blanket works outside. It intercepts and reflects a large part of that sunlight before it reaches the indoor surfaces. And now, for reasons completely unrelated to window science. Chickens. This is what my chickens looks like through the thermal camera. The feathers hide much of the body heat, while the exposed areas like their small feet stand out much more clearly. And the chicks looked like tiny heat signatures, keeping just enough distance to make sure I couldn't catch one. This contributes nothing to window science, but it does help me recover some value from the camera. Should you cover every window in emergency blankets? No. Use this as a temporary measure on windows receiving strong direct sunlight, particularly if you don't have shutters, an awning, or another form of exterior shade, or if you simply want an additional layer of protection. And obviously, you can still close your curtains and blinds for additional protection. In fact, barricade the whole room if you must. Just don't use your dogs, chickens, or rabbits. Here are two rabbits, deeply in love with each other. Aren't they cute? Their ears stand out clearly because they're less insulated than the rest of their bodies. They offered no useful advice on summer ventilation. Although their preferred architecture is a hole in the ground where no direct sunlight enters and freshness is apparently the main design principle. The second method I recommend costs absolutely nothing, but people often use it backwards. During the cooler morning or evening, open windows on different sides of the house if possible. That gives the air a route through the building, but the outside air needs to be cooler than the air inside. Keep accessible openings safe around children and animals as well, especially small chickens. More chicks. At this point, I think you've seen nearly every animal on my little farm. The third trick is the fan and frozen bottle method. The basic version uses sealed frozen bottles placed inside a stable tray with a fan moving air around them. I tested it, and yes, it kinda works. The air close to the bottles feels noticeably cooler, especially when you're sitting directly in front of the fan. But this is personal cooling, not a homemade air conditioner capable of cooling an entire building. The bottles warm up and they produce a surprising amount of condensation. Seriously, so much water appears on the outside of closed bottles. So catch that water with a tray or towels and be extremely careful around the electrical fan. Freezing the bottles also consumes electricity and the freezer releases heat while doing it. But if you freeze them during the cooler night, that heat is much less annoying than during the hottest part of the afternoon. And the freezer is running anyway, so one final visit to the dog because you already know he's my favorite. Some animals are considerably easier to film when no cooperation is required, especially this one. He loves the camera. I hope you found these tricks useful. They cost almost nothing, and each one has a real result behind it. If you'd rather know what's actually happening in your home instead of trusting what looks right, this is the channel. I break down what works, what wastes money, and what can quietly damage your home.